everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and right over there, ready to nerd out, is Nikki Kinzer.
This is probably the only time they're going to hear me talk, so hello!
No,
welcome!
Stop! Just you stop. I'm doing this for you. This episode is for you, specifically.
Really?
You know that, right?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
All
for
right.
you. So, before we dig in to talking about text automation, no, wait, hear me out. This is going to change your life. You got to head over to Take Control ADHD and get to know us a little bit better. Listen to the show for free right there on the website, or please subscribe to the mailing list, and we'll let you know each time a new episode is posted. You can connect with us on Twitter and Facebook at Take Control ADHD, and call 503-664-48DD to get your thoughts and questions on the show. Okay.
I have a thought.
Automation. What is your thought?
So I'm looking at your
Oh my
notes.
God, please get me out of this.
Yes,
I pray for the sweet relief of death.
Yes, I'm looking at your notes.
Uh-huh.
You have 10 pages of notes here, Pete.
It's not 10 pages.
It is.
Come on.
It is 10 pages.
No, yeah, you know, it is actually 10 pages. I'm not going to talk about all of that.
Okay, good.
I promise you I will not talk all about that.
All right.
I could see how that would be a little bit terrifying.
It's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, no, I'm going to try and make it not as overwhelming. I'm doing this because the last time we talked about this was way back in the day, back before my beard was gray, on episode 122. We were still the organizing podcast back then. Mm-hmm. You remember those days?
Barely, but I do, yes.
I did this whole episode on text and file automation, and we talked about a number of tools. The tools I focused on were Text Expander and Hazel, and these were tools that could allow you to do all kinds of wonderful things on your computer and save you time, and it's super overwhelming, and I totally get that. But that was a long time ago. So, cut to just a couple of weeks ago. Nikki and I are recording a screencast for her new online product that is coming out soon. And it was super fun. And in the middle of doing this screen share, I typed a few quick keys and boom, the date appeared.
The date came up. It was like
you
magic.
That?
I do, because magic. I stopped you and I'm like, how did you do that?
I know, you stopped and I said, now hold on. This is such a great opportunity to talk about this magic, this crazy voodoo that we wield on our computers, and it will save you time if you invest just a little bit to get to know it. And so I'm going to talk about it today, just this one feature. I'm not going to go into files, just text today in the context of ADHD and why I love it as someone who lives with ADHD. So what do you think? Is that okay?
As long as you don't talk about 10 pages worth of stuff, I'm good.
I promise.
Okay.
So I am working on a Mac, and I am using an app called Text Expander. And you can find out more about it at textexpander.com, link in the show notes. Now, while I'm talking specifically about, I'm using specifically Text Expander on my system, there are a number of Windows sort of parallel apps, and they have many of the same features. So while I'm talking about Text Expander, please don't turn it off. We're talking about the concepts here and not a specific app, so to speak. So you never fear, there is an alternative. At the end of the show, we'll run through a couple of options, alternatives to this Text Expander tool. So to recap, first of all, what is text automation? The big question. Text automation is using short combinations of keys on your keyboard to expand into longer strings of text. In Text Expander, those are called snippets. Now, the example here might be the example we just talked about with Nikki, the date. So I might type in on my system a key combination, and the system will automatically check my computer and expand those three keys into the full date very, very quickly. So I can type 3 characters and get the full date. Very easy. Now, most of these apps come pre-installed with a snippet library, right? So a library of all the kinds of snippets you might use and can customize to get started. But the real power comes when you add your own snippets for text that is most important to you at work. Now, the 3 big benefits that I count on Text Expander to help me solve regarding ADHD: 1, consistency; 2, accuracy; and 3, clarity. So I'm going to walk through these ADHD benefits right now. First, my super secret example. This falls under the heading of ADHD benefit consistency. I feel like I'm letting people see what's behind the velvet curtain.
Ooh.
You know?
Yeah,
when I say this,
that's good.
let me just say, I hope none of my students are listening to this. This is all about
Be careful.
grading.
Yeah.
So grading papers, especially at the university level, it takes a lot of time, and coming up with, helpful comments and things, it takes a lot of time. If you've never graded 25, university senior final essays, final projects, it's a it's a big project to do that. And I end up, I found I was writing many, many, many thousands and thousands of words in my comments to students, to help them make their work better. And then I discovered Text Expander. And so I found that I could save entire paragraphs, entire, pages of comments as snippets. For example, the first time I write a response on a student paper that seems like something I might want to say again, I copy it, I open up Text Expander and paste it into a new snippet and title it and assign it a few keystrokes. The next time I need to use that paragraph or series of paragraphs, I just type a few keys and boom. So if I type on my computer right now, say I'm in a Word document typing a comment, and I type AALOUD, right? One word with an extra A, because I'm not likely to make that as a typo when I'm normally typing. That expands to, there are a number of areas of awkward construction of language in this paper. While general readability is fair, passages requiring reread, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on for, 100 words. I type one word, I get 100. Do you start to see the benefit of this, Nikki?
I do. And then what if you need to tweak it? So now you've got this paragraph, but you want to change a couple things. Are you allowed to do that?
No, you're not allowed to do that. You have to move on. I'm kidding. Of course you're allowed to do that.
Okay,
it's
good.
just in Word, right? You've just created text, and you can do anything you want with it. But wait, there's more, right? So in my snippet library, I have dozens of these paragraphs, right? Each assigned a few keys. So in the equivalent of 4 or 5 words, right? And I'm saying words in quotes here, these words that I've customized so that I don't accidentally create them as typos. I can end up writing hundreds of words or pages of comments to these students and then customize them per student and make sure that I'm giving the students, exactly what I want to say. But creating these snippets gives you a starting point that can really help save a ton of time. And in fact, Text Expander, I should say as an aside, does have a statistics panel, so you can see just how many characters you've saved, how many times you've expanded snippets. This month I've saved 750,000 characters in my typing, and so it can be a powerful time saver.
Okay, I'm going to sound really stupid here.
Go for it. I dare you.
Text Expander is not an app.
It is an app.
It is an app.
It's an app that runs in the background on your computer, right, at the computer level. So it's always running in the background, and it's watching everything you type.
So how do I get it? I go into the App Store and look for it and download it? It's not in the
App Store. No. You go to the website. You go to textexpander.com, and it's actually a subscription-based. Text Expander specifically is a subscription-based service now, so they can do ongoing development. So you pay a couple of bucks a month, and you have access to this. But wait, because that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? So the next thing you can do with Text Expander is filling in forms, because in your snippets, you can include special characters, right? Like the enter key, I want my snippet here to hit enter or hit tab, So if you're filling in a form or sending an email, you might type the email address and then hit the tab key to go to the next field, right? Mm-hmm. So you can then create a snippet that allows you to fill in forms at work. A lot of us at work, if you're dealing with, human resources systems or ERP systems, any sort of financial system, there are a lot of forms. And if you find yourself having to enter the same data all the time in these forms, or you need to save keystrokes, you can use a program like Text Expander, and it'll allow you to fill out these forms and boilerplate all the text that doesn't need to change and give you an opportunity to edit the text that does need to change and then fill in the form for you and submit it. It is a super easy way to automate filling in forms. You can also access core system data, right? I already mentioned the date, but you can access all sorts of other core system data, dates, your email address, your phone numbers, your clipboard, for example. So say you have some text that you copy from one location and you need to paste into another location, but also include text around it. I'll give you an example. I have to, every time we post a podcast, for example, I have to grab a link to the MP3, which I copy, and then I have to add it to some additional code that allows me to put it on the website. So I copy the URL from our host, and when I go into the destination site, I type a few quick keystrokes. It enters the snippet and includes the contents of my clipboard right in that snippet. It saves me a ton of time every week with all the podcasts that I have to post. Right? So accessing system data like the clipboard, very easy. Boilerplate email support responses or contracts or form letters. There's even, you can add a snippet library for emoji that allows you to very quickly type emoji without having to look at your keyboard viewer. For example, I can type : and I'll get the 8-ball emoji wherever I am. Or I can hit shrug : and get the shrug, the emoji shrug. Text that shows up right where I'm typing. So it can be very fast. Those happen to be things that I might use a lot, but in this case, you might not. So you end up using, whatever sticks in your fingers. Those are the things you use to automate in Text Expander.
Do you remember a long time ago when I sent you an emoji and I thought it was a sky? I thought it was the sky with a kite.
What was it really?
Japan. Do you remember that?
I do. And
you're like, why are you sending me an emoji with Japan? I'm sorry. I know that's totally off, but it was so funny. I thought it was the sky. I thought it was the kite.
I'm starting to see where Text Expander might really be able to help you in your new emoji career.
I just wanted to, break it up a little bit.
Totally. I totally hear you. So I want to talk about templates because last time recently we have talked about templates and building templates in Evernote a few weeks back. And this is another one. The ADHD benefit for me, this is accuracy, right? Because for me, being able to quickly generate a template of some sort of text that I need to fill in and have reliable and consistent data collection is really important. And if I try to do it all from memory, I end up screwing up somehow. So here you are. You go into Text Expander, you can create a snippet that includes, for example, show notes for this very podcast, right? If in a few quick keystrokes, I can generate an entire document's worth of fields that I need to fill in to make sure that this podcast has all the data associated with it, from URL to date to show notes to blurb for the website to links. Everything can be handled right in Text Expander. How about meeting minutes? Say you need to make sure you have meeting minutes that allow you to catalog all of the people that are showing up at a particular meeting, and make sure you have a Q&A section, and make sure you have a introduction section, and make sure you have the dates and timestamps accordingly, so that you can have a consistent look to all of the meeting minutes and make sure you're collecting the same data every time you have a meeting. These are the kinds of things you can do with Text Expander very quickly in any document. Right? In any application. That's the important thing to note here. Last time we were talking about only doing this in Evernote. With Text Expander, you can create these templates anywhere.
Okay. So Dropbox, Evernote, Word, it doesn't matter.
Pages, yes, a text editor, Evernote, even anywhere you can type, you can create these things with just a couple of keystrokes. Now, for meeting minutes, for example, this is a handy one that I put into place when I was going into meetings with the same people largely every week as attendees. You can also do things like optional selections in Text Expander. So in my snippet, I build a little optional selection. It allows me to enter a menu that says, here are the people who usually come to this meeting, right? Mm-hmm. And I can check a little checkbox next to all of the names and include those in my snippet. So now when I engage the snippet, when I type the few keys, maybe MMTG for meeting, right? All of my template comes out and a little box pops up and it says, hey, are these the attendees that are showing up at your meeting? You check the boxes of the people who show up, and only their names show up in your meeting minutes. So you don't have to worry about, the custom text. This is an option to, you mentioned, can you tweak these things after you enter them? Well, here's a way to tweak them as you're entering them and make sure you don't miss any steps. Text Expander prods you to make these little additions as you engage the snippet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool.
It's very cool. It's even cooler when you do it in like a customer support capacity. Mm-hmm. So you can, for example, write an email that includes a number of optional sections. So say somebody has just bought a product from your business and you need to send them an invoice, and that invoice needs to include a question about who is accounts payable, who is the service contract, who is the signer of the particular signer of the contract. So there are a number of things that you might include in an email that you don't necessarily need to include in every email. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're a support rep. You open up your new email in your text expander and you engage the snippet, and you get to check those little check boxes. If you already know who the signer is, you can uncheck that so that it won't show up in your snippet. If you have an additional address that you need to include, you can check that and it shows up in the snippet. And suddenly you're creating entire email invoice documents right away with just the custom text that you need, and you're doing it in seconds, not minutes.
How do you remember what your little keywords are?
Well, so Text Expander, when you open Text Expander, the app, you can see, here are all the keywords that you use right next to the list. So I can see, PodTrack URL prefix is peapod on my system.
So it's right there.
It's right there in front of you if you want to look at it. You can also search for it. But what I have found, like anything else, right? We talked about jumping into Evernote. The same thing applies jumping into Text Expander. Have a single feature you're trying to automate and master that, right? Don't try to do everything in Text Expander because it's overwhelming and you won't remember it. But if there's something that you need to fix, a problem you need to solve, something you want to save time doing every day, this is a great way to do it and then see how it grows from there. So we've talked about building templates so far, and I would throw in school notes. You want to have a quick school notes template right as a snippet. You can add this new template anywhere you want. Let's say you have one long-running Word doc of all of your notes for a particular class. Each day you go to the end of that doc, hit your snippet, and you have a whole new day section of notes that you can enter and fill in the blanks of guest speakers or assignments, anything you need, and it's all right there using Text Expander. The last section for clarity, and I guess this falls in accuracy too, correcting common mistakes, right? This is an easy no-brainer, right? We have learned in the course of our time together that the one word that I can't spell is biscuit.
Do you remember what mine is?
I don't. What was yours?
Restaurant.
Oh, restaurant. Totally. Restaurant. Isn't that funny? Restaurants and biscuits.
Yes. So we cannot have a restaurant with biscuits. That can't happen.
No biscuit restaurant. It'd be terrible. Chronic. So if I look up in the dictionary how to spell biscuit, I can create a snippet with my spelling of biscuit as the trigger word and the correct spelling of biscuit as the snippet. So every time I type, it's like building your own autocorrect. Now, you might be saying, okay, but I could also just add this error to the dictionary in Office or, whatever on my system to the autocorrect dictionary, so that would help me. And I would say, you're exactly right. But what about the custom errors that you make that don't get picked up by the spelling or grammar checker? What about specific APA or MLA formatting style issues? You can create a snippet that will help you fix the problem of where you put the period and punctuation around quotation marks. You can create these snippets that are highly customized to the errors that you make that aren't always caught by the system level stuff. And I find that really useful. Here's another example that I find useful. I downloaded a snippet library for Apple trademark product trademarks. Right? So anytime I type something like Apple Watch, it automatically snippets to use the little Apple emoji and capital Watch with the TM symbol, so that I know I'm writing how, Apple wants me to write. If your company has trademarks and you need to make sure you're writing them correctly, you can create snippets that allow you never to make a mistake on those specific legal copyrights. And copyright statements can be notoriously persnickety. And so including something like, for example, the date in a copyright snippet so that you never have to think about the date when you're writing a copyright is really useful. So accented words, foreign languages, code, HTML, CSS. This is great for people who know a little bit of code and have to work a little bit in HTML or Markdown, but can't keep it in memory. At trademarks, I mentioned copyright statements. You can embed snippets inside of snippets. This is advanced snippeting that ends up being really handy. So there are all kinds of ways to automate the text that comes across your desk and automate email responses. Just find one thing that is super useful that you think you could save a little time on, and try it and see how it works for you. The last thing that is Text Expander specific, they do have two functions. One is public groups. So if you create a group of snippets that you think would be useful to others, you can publish it so the rest of the world can subscribe to it. And then those corrections end up, anytime you make a change to your group of corrections, it gets synced out to all of the people who subscribe to your group. And that's the case with these Apple trademarks. So as Apple adds new products, they add new trademarks to that snippet group so that they're always up to date on everybody who uses that group. Very handy. And teams. If you work on a team of people and you want to make sure your customer service responses are consistent across support reps or management representatives, you can subscribe to Text Expander as a team or as a business, and everybody gets the same batch of snippets. Really useful, really, really useful. And I know many very large organizations actually use this specific tool, Text Expander, to manage their customer support responses and be more efficient in helping people. So very useful there. What do you think? So far,
I
so
like
good?
it. I'm going to use it. And there's two ways I'm going to use it to begin with, right? Just to start small. Definitely the date thing. I think that's really helpful.
Sure.
But I'm also going to use it for inquiries, because I get a lot of inquiries about my services, and the first paragraph is usually always the same. And then I will, look at what they're saying and I'll add what I want to add. But I think it would be really helpful to have that first part, thank you for your email. Thank you for inquiring about, having that stuff automated, right, I think would definitely save me time. So that's how I'm going to use it.
I was just talking to my wife last night. She was working on her her case notes for the students that she works with as a speech path, and it's grading period right now, and she saves herself a ton of time using Text Expander for any standard, therapeutic language that she doesn't end up having to type over and over and over again. It's all just built into the system, and then she can customize per student from there. Saves a ton of time.
Absolutely.
There are some really creative ways to use Text Expander, and I just did a search for some, what is it that people use? How else do people use Text Expander in their daily life? And I found a couple that I wanted to share. One of them was somebody who is in customer support and often has to type the words ship or shirt.
I know where you're going with this.
Right. And so a supervisor, he says, after a supervisor caught me mistyping one as the related profanity, I made a snippet to ensure I don't end up with that typo again. The expanded text ends up being like 5 lines of gibberish. So when you type the profane word, it just replaces it with a paragraph of nonsense characters, and that tells him, hey, you just mistyped that word. I don't know what you meant to type, but it wasn't that word. So go replace all this gibberish with the word you meant to replace it with. Right. So it's just a quick way to kind of note to him that he's doing that. I thought that was particularly funny. And then here's another one who created the snippet love, and the expansion is regards. And his reason was, so I don't accidentally sign an email to the boss, client, work associate with the signature of love because I was thinking about my significant other. Anytime you write love, comma, it changes to regards. I thought that was really, really funny. And so there are a number of easy ways to use snippets to kind of save your butt if you need to do that. I find it useful. Now, I will put in the show notes, I've got 6 alternatives to Text Expander, 3 for Windows, 3 for Mac. If you haven't tried these out, you're going to look for Phrase Expander, Phrase Express, and Breevy. Breevy we talked about on the last show 3 years ago, and that's still on the list. On the Mac, A-Text, Typinator, and Type It For Me. So check out the show notes for all 6 of those alternatives. I will tell you that Text Expander last year went from a pay-for-product to a subscription product, and that burnt a lot of people. For me, I use it enough that paying a few bucks a month as a subscription is absolutely worth it for me. It saves me so much time, so much more time than the few dollars that it's just absolutely worth it. For some people, it's not. You might not use it that much. So these other alternatives are pay-for products. You just pay it once, and then you can use it, and you never have to think about it again. So check them out, and I hope that you will share your text automation stories, because for me, I'm telling you, it saves my bacon for those 3 ADHD areas, right? Consistency and clarity and accuracy. So that's it. That's my pitch.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you didn't huddled in a corner, overly nerded.
No, I think I'm just always going back to what you said about Evernote. Just start small and be clear about how you want to use it, and then I think the rest will come. So I know 2 definite ways that I can use this, and that's where I'm going to start. So yeah,
that's good.
Great.
I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Nikki. And thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. We sure appreciate it. Please share your stories over on Facebook or Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week right here, Taking Control, the ADHD Podcast.